Hello, Mika Getsme. You were quick off the mark today. Well done. Oh, we've gone back to hang on. Do we still have echo? No. It's funny, because the other day, it had gone away. Hurrah! Apparently not. Computers this week are just not my friends. I had the similar problems at work. To the point, it was almost impossible for me to work yesterday. So, without giving too much work stuff. Well, but the things that I had shouldn't have been, right? So, I'm a home worker, so I have to VPN into work. That all went fine. All my home computers are doing everything they should, except for the weird echo, which is something is throwing the microphone out the speaker on my desk, even though all system sounds should be in my ear. So if anything, I should hear the echo. You should not, because the echo should come out my ear. Now, I wouldn't know where to find it, and clearly I thought I'd found it, but I hadn't. But ignoring that portion of it. So I logged into work yesterday, and everything seemed to be working, except my computer was running like it had, like, you know, a 1980s processor on it, and it was like, it's real slow. And so I decided I'd do a reboot, because, you know, maybe it just had a bit of a grump. Oh, that's right, and an internal website that I needed to use didn't work. I could do a DNS lookup on it. It knew what the IP address, but the web pages just wouldn't go there. And now we've had problems with some of the proxy servers here before, and so it just screamed of that. So, well, it's running slow, and I'll give it a reboot. On reboot, not only did the web pages still not work, now Teams didn't work, to the point you opened it, and it would go 1, 2, 3, close it again. No error messages, just closed it again. And so, well, that wasn't going to work. Email took nearly 10 minutes to find the server. So it kind of sat there connecting. Well, it's not that hard, you know. It really isn't. And I also couldn't connect to any of the server shares that we have with documentation and stuff. Everything was fine this morning except for the documentation shares. And you're sitting there going, and I work in IT, and I have, you know, plenty of patience, allegedly, for this. But yesterday's stream didn't echo. I hadn't changed any settings. I didn't even turn the computer off. But today, all I've done was shut down OBS and start it. So it should have been exactly the same as it was yesterday. But the key thing is mute the speaker. If I mute the speaker, it stops the echo. But it means something, and I don't know what, is sending to a specific device when it is not the default device. But of course, well, OBS somewhere is sending to it, and I don't know why. What the hell's that? I don't know what the hell that is, computer. I didn't ask for that. The only thing I can think of. Hang on, why are you giving me help? I don't want fucking help. I'm clicking on give me the bloody mixer. Interesting. That's interesting. OBS, because it only happens under OBS. OBS has two processes, one for OBS and one for OBS browser page. The browser page is what gives you the music you're listening to. But OBS shows us 1%. I think I've worked it wrong. You're supposed to go there. Yeah, OBS is a good product when you're not doing anything crazy. I wonder. Prepare for incoming echo. Okay, let me change this back to there. Yeah, look at the ping. But you didn't hear the echo. Well, that's crazy. Found out what it was. Well, it was this time. Can you still hear the music, Mika Ketsumi? Can you even still hear me? That may be also another question, actually. I'm getting really confused. Can you hear me? Okay, so I found out what it was. Well, I found out what it was this time. So remember I said that it had an OBS browser page, which normally is the music. Can you still hear the music? I have one person on the YouTube who constantly bitches that it's the same music. Oh, fair enough. The music is supposed to be there so that when I don't talk it is not deathly silent, alright? It is not on loud, it has to be said. Hang on, let me fire up my own stream and do it that way because I don't have other noises, so hang on. The answer is no. The answer is no. So now you don't hear the music. Yeah, I know you're getting echo now. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. So, well, that sucks, donkey balls. What can I do with you then? Hang on. Because this always used to work. Oh, maybe that's it. Hang on. Hang on. Put you back to that. There you go. Now you got the music back. And I don't have to listen to it. And we don't have the echo. There you go. Right. The problem was the music. So, in short, there is a media playing thing, and it uses, for whatever reason, a web page to do it. It's obviously got some inbuilt kind of local crap that it designates, and it effectively brings up a process called OBS web page. And the page was using my speaker, even though I told it not to previously. It was using my speaker, and even though it wasn't actually outputting any data, it obviously picked up the microphone as well and was playing that out the speaker. So, for some unknown reason, maybe it's part of the capturing the video. Who the hell knows? Who the actual fluff knows, right? Because, well, yeah. So as a result, I have changed that from being the thing that it thought it was to the thing that I thought it was, and I can have the speaker on a volume so that when I turn the stream off, I can hear stuff, and it would also mean that should I'm playing a game, whatever, I can still hear the game, but you know, it means that I don't have to wonder why everything's gone quiet when I stop streaming. Right. Well, as I say, for today, that would appear to be the problem. For tomorrow, who knows? Right. Put you in there, because we're only doing half of you as well. No need to do any more than that. No need to do extra work for the fun of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need to do a couple of you, and we will fake you. One more. No, just the one actually. So you need to come down and join that way, because we are finishing off this strip today, well, pretty much we are guaranteed to be finishing off this strip today. And then we can have a good look at it. Right. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. 4, 7. Right. It was half bugging me that I hadn't done that bit, so. Right. You are also done. You won't be done yet. It's you and you that we need. So, how are you today, Mika Ketsme? How are you? How's things going? I'm glad to know it's a lot cooler here today, so I am slightly less grumpy today. Although, I am still me, so I'm still grumpy. But I am slightly less grumpy. And you can't see what I'm doing. There you go. You didn't say. Right. My usual problem, I have once again forgotten, got caught up with the whole sound thing and moved on and forgot to press the button. Right. So, let's have a look. I need one. Three. I need two. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do something very sensible, and you're not going to believe how sensible this is. For you will herald me forevermore as Liz the Wise. Now, where did I put them? Let's get rid of the work laptop because that's just in the way now. Now, somewhere over here. There we are. That'll do. I need a bag. Why do you need a bag, Liz? Well, because we're going shopping! Right. And a pair of scissors. I still haven't found that pair of scissors that I lost a little while ago. So, I'm going to make you all longer. So I tie knots. I like big knots. And suddenly, for the reason I like big butts, kind of came in mind with that. You just grew longer, which was not the plan. Do you mind? Thank you. Right. Now, how am I going to achieve this? Do I want to do individual knots? Do I want to do pairs of knots? I think we... What did we do before? Let's have a look at the before times. Because, you know, it doesn't overly matter. Pairs. Right. Answers that question. We did pairs. So we will do pairs again. Yes, well, worked out well last time. So do that and put the bobbins in the bag. Oh, get down the bottom of the bag. I know you're the first in, and it's scary. Alright, there you go. And then we turn. And it doesn't have to be an exciting knot, sorry, not knot. But a knot it shall be. There we go. Knot. And then grab you in here. Yeah. And we chop, and we take bobbins, and we keep you out. We try and keep you out the way, and we tie that in here. So I keep the long tails so that I can tuck them out the way. So we're going to clear the world of all these bobbins. Now in theory, if I was really sensible, and you know that I'm not that sensible, instead of just dumping them in the bag, I'd tie them together before bumping them in the bag. And as we've only done a few, now's a really good time. The reason I say this is because, well, they have made their journey together and they all started with roughly the same length. Therefore, if I keep them as pairs, I will know come the end how much length was worse needed by a pair, because, well, the pair will still be together. So let me tie these together, and then hate myself for tying them together, because of course they'll go in a bag. Actually, that's not actually, because they'll go in a bag and then they'll all get tangled up and I'll hate myself, because I can't be bothered to get my big bobbin thing out to perch them all individually over the top. So let's not do that actually, but it would be a sensible thing to do. You know, kind of properly sensible thing to do, but let's not. So let's put you back in there. You go like this. So how you doing then, Mika Ketsme? Spam bots were early today. Do you love to come and die? I don't know what it is about spam bots. I think a lot of the spam bots work along the principle that the spam bot, for bigger streamers and the like, they probably wait and report as a batch. Well, of course, I'm an individual. I only get usually one a stream. As a result, I'll report them then and there. So if you were a bot and you're gonna, like, you know, for any in stream do, ooh, squishy mails arrived. We like squishy mails. Squishy mails are good. Everybody likes a good squishy mail. In Nauticelt, to be fair, Nauticelt's mails are not probably so squishy, but to be honest, because he does ropey things, and ropey's not exactly squishy. But, and to be honest, sewing thread's not exactly squishy either. It's the only downside of lace making is it doesn't have the squish. But you can. I am still very tempted to do some form of wool shawl, or even a cotton shawl, for just because we know flies love to pick on me in summer. Something that I can have on a cooler evening such as this. I've got the door open, and when it gets darker I'm going to have to go and shut it before half of Bug's Life come in. And yeah, mind you, Mr. Bat does pretty well at helping with the whole bug thing, but unfortunately he doesn't know to specialise in defending the door. Which is a bit of a shame really, because I can't exactly explain it to him. Maybe I should mention it to him, because I've never actually said. No, we don't. And a lot of that is because none of our bugs will kill us. Oh, by the way, Spambot's dead. We don't have bugs that will give you anything more than a bite that will be slightly annoying. That doesn't mean I want them in my house. Now, I did mention on stream the other day that basically I could stand in a field of the bitey types and they will not bite me. But that doesn't stop them being in the house. And like the fly comes, sits on me and annoys me. Well, there is that. I mean, if you need to live in a country where, frankly, none of the wildlife will kill you, move here, right? And you know, I will stand up for every Australian mother who calls us whinging poms, right? Because we are. To basically every level, yes, we are. Our weather is some of the most temperate in the world. But we don't half whine about it when it's cold, we don't half whine about it when it's wet, we don't half whine about it when it's hot. So that's pretty much 99% of the year. Today has been glorious, by the way. I just want to set the record straight. I have loved today. It has been sunny, distinctly a lot cooler. Overnight was cooler. I had the windows open. In fact, to the point I actually had to pull my cover back over me because I started out without because it was roastingly hot, and I actually got cold. Today is cooler, but it has been sunny. The dogs have sat in the sun in the garden. They've enjoyed it, but they didn't come in like burning. Yeah, well, that's not happened yet, so shut up. But we don't get tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and the like. We don't really get, I mean, we get floods, but not really floods. We get drainage that doesn't cope floods. We don't really get floods. I mean, okay, we made global news in 2007, and in fact, my house was technically underwater, it just wasn't built then, but in 2007, this area flooded. In fact, well, basically the whole county flooded. And we made global news. And that was the thing. So, you know, don't get me wrong, we've always got drains. The problem was, back in 2007, we had, and I'm going to blame Naughty Celt, just because I can blame Naughty Celt, right, because he lives there. What happens is, because we are the British side of Wales, right, the water from the River Severn collects, a lot of water from Wales collects in the River Severn that comes through a spot just north of here. And that river connects to a lot of the stream stroke smaller rivers around here, well, throughout the county. But the problem is the Severn meets something else just north of here. And so when they meet, and it's been horrifically rainy, it don't half get a bit wet. And literally, an awful lot of houses just north of me, and when I say just north of me, right where my ex-husband lives, but in 2007 he didn't live there then. Actually, where the did he live in 2000? Oh, he did live there, but he lived on the first floor. Anyway, because he was in a block of flats at the time. He is like kind of if you threw something out the window, it would have landed in in the areas that were heavily affected. To the point, actually, hang on. If I go webby searchy, hang on. Did this before. And found some glorious photos, including exactly where he lived. Oh, that's boring. It's not the web page I wanted. I found last time great pictures of. Let's go to images. This will do it. So let me share my screen with you. Hang on. Hot OBS screen thing again. Hang on. Yeah, it's running equals the running. Let me. Right. what isn't overly apparent from a lot of these photos is that basically none of this water should be here. If you look at this, there's roadway. None of this water. Of course, you're not going to. We've noticed some unusual traffic. From Tewkesbury. But oh, hang on. Please check verify your viewing. Yes, I am. Thank you. Well, basically, yeah. So this area, very blurry, admittedly, is Tewkesbury, but all of this water that you see is not normal. Now, of course, finding an equivalent of this area on something like Google Maps. Hang on. Bear in mind I don't live in Tewkesbury, so that's fine. At Tewkesbury, we want this kind of map. So to give you an idea, while obviously not to the same angles and all the rest of it as the other web page. Where is it? This page. So let's see if I can work out roughly where that is. Because, well, lots of things were underwater. Where's the Abbey? Don't suppose one of you is higher quality than the other, is it? No, not really. I'm gonna. That looks like the cricket pavilion. I don't think it is. You want to scroll. That's the only problem with pictures like that. You want to scroll it. Let's see if we can find something else. Let's see if we can find somewhere else. I don't want the YouTube videos. Oh, here we go. This might help. Let's see if we can find this, for example. Have a look at some of this. That's the actual roadworks. That's the holiday park. Well, I can tell you, I mean, let's look at this picture. I can tell you now, that's not supposed to be wet. That might be the river, but it also could be a road. I think it's probably a road, looking at that. You know, that kind of summarises up how wet it got, really. As does this. You know, clearly there are roads and houses, and, well, good luck to you. So in 2007, we got a tad wet. The whole kind of this line, I don't know whether you can actually see my mouse pointer, but there is a thing that allows you to, well, it can be, but as you can see here, right, the river comes in roughly where that pop-up box is, and it comes round down to over here to the right where the pop-up box now is, up here through this. Come on, pop-up box. Pop up over here, there you go. And then kind of up and round. So it does a bit of a bow loop here. And as you can see, it did, because you can also see in the background that there's great flooded bits over here and more flooded bits over here, right? It flooded like basically the entire county, which is quite big. So if we go back to, let's go back to this. So if I show you, now I don't suppose you're going to highlight, but Gloucestershire, basically, there's Gloucester, but Gloucestershire, I don't suppose you're actually going to be able to highlight Gloucestershire for me, are you? There you go. So if you imagine Tewkesbury is here-ish, not spotting it, Northway, yeah, Tewkesbury's kind of here, but literally this river that comes in here as you see, Frampton or Pont. So this is the River Severn that comes in from the bottom and gets smaller and then kind of farty. Basically, all of this got wet. Real friggin' wet. To the point we made national and global news. Yeah. So, you know, if I go back to my searches, you know, obviously we've got loads of stuff on it, but there were, that's quite a nice picture. Just pity that's the size it is. Well, yes, very much. So, other than that, you know, that's probably one of the worst floodings we've had in this country for a real long time. It's not that there aren't other floodings, but that was probably the worst this country's seen for a really long time. And I was here. I remember it well. I was married then. And for some reason, Trev had gone to Gloucester, where it had flooded. And, well, I was at home with the dog. And we'd been up the hill. And it had been raining, and I hadn't really thought a lot of it, because, well, yeah, hello, England, rain. And, well, it kind of transpired that, you know, when I left work, it was raining. Took the dog up the hill for his swimming lesson. It was raining. But it wasn't like, you know, when you get one of those torrential downpours that you go, that's a heck of a lot of water. This was just casual rain. It didn't seem anything special. Right? This just seemed like normal, casual level of rain. And, you know, it kept it up for a bit. Didn't think too much of it. We'd been up the hill, and even as I took Charlie up the hill, because that's where the swimming people were, there was like this little river of water running down the road. And I mentioned it to them. I went, wow, it must have rained a fair bit round here. You know, there's like, you know, water running down the road. But it's there. That's surprising. Anyway, didn't think too much of it. Did the swimming, came home. You know, sat around waiting for Trev because he'd be home later. Dog and, you know, I was probably playing on my computer, as I inevitably do. We didn't give it a lot of thought till about 5:30. Ring. What's the matter with you? There is flooding. What do you mean it's flooded? I mean, Gloucester does have the, you know, river running through it, so, you know, in hindsight, kind of obvious. But, again, it had just been casually raining. Really hadn't given a lot of thought, you know, because where we lived wasn't wet. So, you know, it's not your foot. It's not like, you know, you're up to your knees in your own house and you're like, well, hey, duh, got my own problems, bye, you know. Anyway, he was moaning because he was stuck on, you know, on a particular road and you know, oh, it's all wet and nobody's moving, it's terrible. Don't know what time I'm going to get home. Sulk, right? And quite rightly so. Anyway, an hour or so later, he hadn't moved and his temper was getting worse because he really wasn't in the mood for this shit. And hours later, he had managed to move, but lots of people had abandoned their cars, which made everything worse because, of course, then the cars that could have got through weren't getting through because it was blocked by the ones that couldn't. And it was like, oh, it's flooded at the roundabout. And I was thinking, oh, it can't be that flooded. You know, it's only a bit of rain. Christ. You know, if they're scared to drive through a puddle, you know, the police should be taking licenses off them. Kind of, you know, as you do, right? Anyway, he finally got home about 11:30 in the world stinkiest mood. And as I say, I don't blame it. It had taken him 6 hours. He could have fucking walked it in that, right? It's only a couple of miles. He could have walked it in that. So, you know, I did understand that he was really miserable. And, you know, we were really surprised. And he said, all the roads are blocked. And I'm like, what do you mean they're all blocked? Because, again, it's been raining. Hello, England, you know. Really hadn't thought that much of it. And so the fact that all the roads are blocked, I had to drive around all the way up here and I had to go all the way over there and come all the way back in. I'm like, why? All the roads are flooding. Why? Genuinely, don't find it really understand. I don't see why they're flooded. What's so bad? You know, if we burst water mains everywhere or something. And he was kind of like, oh, it's raining. And I'm like, yeah, but it's raining. I was not very sympathetic because, well, it hadn't seemed that bad. It really hadn't. Anyway, next morning, it was due to be the release of Harry Potter Deathly Hallows. And I had ordered mine the November before. Bear in mind, that's July 2007, right? And I'd ordered me Harry Potter from Amazon back in November. I was really well excited because I do like me some Harry Potter and I want to know how it turned out. And, you know, I was kind of excited. And, well, Trev went down as he usually did on the Saturday to go to Tesco's to pick himself up the paper. And he got to Tesco's because it was, you know, cool. Well, it's like 5-minute walk, if that, right? But he drove and he went to Tesco's, got the paper. Oh, they've got the new Harry Potter book. Oh, well, that's really nice, but I've ordered mine from Amazon. I can't wait. It'll be here soon, said me. All day I waited for that bloody book. Oh, we couldn't get there. Well, everyone else can. Tesco's had the book. Tesco's could get it. So Trev, before I lost my shit, went and bought me a copy of Harry Potter from Tesco's. And I sat and read it overnight. Because I'd lost time really not having this book. And so I read the book. And, you know, it turned up about 2 days later eventually from the Amazon one. But it was one of those kind of stupid parts was that, well, the Tesco lorry got through, but the Amazon man couldn't. And obviously, lots of people spent the next week without water, including us. So we had, and of course it was quite a hot day time. So although we'd had a lot of water, it was also quite hot. And hot days, no water. Not a great combination. Especially when you have to go to work. And, you know, there was kind of the, if your co-workers stink, shut up. We know, right? But there was also they gave us a bottle of water. One of the girls was pregnant. And one day she turned around and said, I can't drink that. Because there was no other water, but I can't drink that. And they were like, well, why not? And she went, if you read the bottle, it says it's 30% salt. I'm not allowed that much. Oh, they said. So they had to then go and get special water for her because, well, yeah. You know, we had quite an unpleasant time. I mean, on a kind of a Liz and Trev level, we were not hugely affected. I mean, obviously we had no water, but our house was dry, everything, you know, we didn't lose anything in our house. But people we knew did. One of the guys that came to work for our company, the company I work for, not long after, he'd lost half the stuff in his house because the whole day he lived in Tewkesbury, and well, Tewkesbury was underwater. Trev lived with me at the time, that's why he didn't get wet. So, but we separated, I think it was the year after or something ridiculous. This was not related to the flooding, obviously, but it must have been around then. But, you know, virtually everyone who lived in Tewkesbury lost stuff. For years, you would drive past and people were still living in caravans on their driveway because their houses were not suitable for living because they needed to be repaired to a level, they had to dry out, they had to have mould killed, they had to have, you know, all the electrics redone, everything, right? And it was horrendous. But as I said, it's probably one of the worst floodings we've had in this country for years, if not the worst. And as I say, I do know that because we actually had people go, "Hey, you lot are near Tewkesbury, aren't you?" "Yeah, we're near Tewkesbury." at work, and they're American, going, "Oh, we've had something about you on our news." Yeah, we flooded, we know, right? But it made other people's news. And so, much like you hear kind of like, oh, terrible flooding in whatever, and, some sad looking pictures, and because it's always really turd brown water as well, isn't it? It's never clean water. And, and all of that, and you kind of go, oh, that looks terrible. Or, or the earthquakes and you go, oh, that looks terrible. I hope everyone's okay, and you hear the, send money to help the whatevers, whichever nation they are. Help the money to help the, Ugandans or whoever it is. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And I can't help but wonder if, did anyone do that for us? Because we were underwater, I mean, obviously, we've got a bit more money, we're a Western world, but, there's still the millions of pounds of money, probably billions of pounds worth of money of damage was caused by that flood. Now, they have done a lot of work since then, because one of the biggest problems they had was that although the I think I've mentioned to you that I always found it amusing that the San Andreas fault and the Americans built right slap bang on top of it. Out the size of the country that you guys have, you built on it, right? You could have built somewhere else, but you didn't, right? And then you've got the Egyptians who built their hospital right behind the dam that they put up to control the Nile and stuff in Egypt, in Cairo, and every 7 years it floods right over the fucking hospital. So human beings do not always have the common sense that you really would like to think that they should. Well, Tewkesbury built their electricity generating plant right next to the river that floods a lot. Because before you ask, Tewkesbury was not a virgin flooding plain, right? It has previous. If you ever go to Tewkesbury Cathedral, the car park, so you've got a little car park next to it and then like a longer, bigger car park over here, you will drive past the cricket pavilion on stilts because it gets wet all the time. Pretty much, if I spit on the ground here, there's a flood in Tewkesbury, right? So every time a dog pees, there's a flood in Tewkesbury, right? It is that sensitive. Every time it rains, there is a flood somewhere in Tewkesbury. Tewkesbury should be Tewkesbury under sea, right? It is constantly wet. And there's lots of marshlands, and yes, they did build houses on them. Well done, guys, right? And then they wonder why all the houses flood. Well, there. As a point, a lot of houses in Tewkesbury cannot get insurance. When I moved here, because of the floodings in 2007, I'm not sure you can get insurance. And they went, because it flooded, and I went, it flooded in 2007, right? And he went, oh yeah, and I went, yeah, so did the entire county. Get over it. It was a one-off event. It's not flooded since. Now, I say it's not flooded since. About 2 weeks after I moved in, where I live, you come out the road, it's to the main road, and to go anywhere kind of useful, you go Tewkesbury one way, somewhere else the other, right? Turning that way. Goes, and there's a bit of a bend in the road. That bend in the road flooded 5 times after I moved here in about 6 weeks. To the point I couldn't go that way. Now, a million go that way and round 6 million miles, but couldn't go that way. And bear in mind, technically, works that way, right? So, but of course we were working from home by then, so. But it flooded, and it flooded good. It wasn't like, flood, little bit of water. It was like, waist deep water flood. But not here. So, However, there was one a couple of years ago. Rained like stink, so it was a bit more Armageddon-y looking rain, kind of worth it. Where my toilet was going blub, 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 blub. And I was like, I could hear something. And it wasn't constant, but I could hear something. And I remember the man came to deliver some food because it was takeout night. And I went, can you hear that? And he went, yeah. And I went, I'm not going to expect you to come with me, but I just wanted to check. Someone else could hear that. And he was like, yeah, I hear that. I'm going to see if I can find it. Hang on. Why is it they keep dicking with this? They keep dicking with this. Keeping collections, videos. Here it is. Hang on, you need sound for starters. Hang on. I'm not going to show you the picture. I'm just going to play you the sound. That was such a weird noise, and I was like, it was air bubbles coming up through the toilet. Not water, thankfully, but air bubbles. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Went to the toilet, because, you know, expected to see, like, crocodile heads or something, right? Because, you know, your imagination's a little bit wild sometimes. And, no, it's air bubbles, you know. It's not flooding over, it wasn't bubbling out. It was just air bubbles. And went outside, all the drains in the road, water's coming out, not going down, right? Was slightly concerned at that point. There was another time that I got a call from the neighbour next door because she's got a better view of it than I have. Basically, there is a little river. When I say a river, I mean I've seen bigger trickles of piss flying out of men's bathrooms, right? It is, frankly, a trickle, not a river. It's not. I'm surprised it's not a stream, but it's technically called a river for some reason. It's called the river. Or is it a brook? Fuck knows. It's like ponds. I don't know the definition. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, this thing had breached its banks. Now, normally it's down like a 1 metre ditch with this like trickle of wee kind of going down the bottom. And this thing had breached its banks and was, you know, merrily getting fat in the little field behind us. And so she phoned us and was like, "Have you seen the river?" And I'm like, "No. Why should I?" Ran upstairs. You know. So that was a little bit of a. I'm going to just sit here and watch that for a bit. Yeah, just in case. Like, there was going to be nothing I could do about it, but you know, I'll watch it anyway. But again, that was a one-off. So like a lot of these things, you know, you do find yourself kind of going, "Yeah, it'll be all right. It'll be all right." Very British. "Yeah, I'll be fine." But it did kind of raise an odd eyebrow of the, maybe I should look at some bags. And then of course it hasn't done it again, so I haven't really thought about it much more. I apologise for Amy, who is communicating with her brother in her loudest voice, because it's cooler and they can play now. Or at least she wants to play, maybe he doesn't, because being a little black dog, he tends to absorb more heat. And to be grumpy. He's definitely been grumpy. He's been nearly grumpier than me. Because we had to have words. There were words had. Although, funnily enough, you do know that Amy occasionally winds her brother up with the "Bark, bark, alert, 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 got to go, oh, save the world, save the world." He then gets up to go and do something. She goes, "Cheers for that, I want to do spot," and then goes and sits down. Well, he tried that on her. Because she got bestest spot, and he wanted it. So he did the whole, "Oh my god, the aliens are coming, quick, help, attack." And she kind of went, "Yeah, whatever." And let him. And he's like, but the aliens are coming. And she's going, "Yeah, I'm not falling for that shit. I invented that shit. I'm not falling for it." It was absolutely hysterical. The fact that it was 3 o'clock in the morning was slightly less hysterical, but it was kind of amusing all the same. It was then that I noticed that I was cold, so, but yeah, poor old Amy. So yeah, she got a decent spot for a change last night, because basically he's been saying, "You can sod off the bed, that's mine," for the last couple of days in very no uncertain terms. I'm sure in doggy language there were words that I would not approve of. Not that I wouldn't use them myself, you understand. But not coming from my dogs. You do not get to call each other that, you know. Do you? No. Hello, miss. Oh, you and your biggity paws. No, that is a dog paw, by the way. Excuse you. Thank you. Excuse you. Yes. Ew, he's been licking your ear. Oh, he's been licking both ears. Ew. Ah, you just wiped it across my face. Stop letting him. Oh, that is ridiculously horribly wet. Come here. Let me dry your ears. Come here. Let me dry your ears. Oh, soggy ears. Soggy ears. Oh, little one. You should bite him more. Don't let him make your ears soggy. There. Now you have drier ears. Yes, that's better. They're still damp, but you have drier ears. There. There. Yes. Why don't you chase each other around the garden? It's nice and cool. I would give you a ball, but then I'd have to go and find it later. Up here. Right. So yes, Chicks, she's definitely more in the mood to play than he is at the moment, which is a little sad because she wants to play and he's not playing and she's not happy. And realistically, if I wasn't doing this, I'd go and throw the ball for her in the garden. Because it's still nice and bright out. I know it's 8:15, but it's nice and bright. There is still vague dappled sunshine just hitting the top of my house. I can see that by the fact that one corner of my window has dappled sunshine. I am downstairs, but it's the bottom of the thing, so bottom of the stuff that comes through, so I know that there will be some more upstairs. Yeah, Tewkesbury underwater was a lot of fun. As I say, we had to all pee in like well, at one point, because they hadn't sorted out the porta potties, you had to do the if it's brown, flush it down, if it's yellow, let it mellow with work colleagues. This is, I mean, with people you live with on a day-to-day basis, this can work. Because, well, you know them. You know what germs they've got. You know what's wrong with them, mostly in the head. With your co-workers, it's not quite... It's not got the same brush off, you know? I was talking with co-worker earlier, after the P. Diddy thing, about the Oscar Pistorius thing a few years ago, where, for those who do not remember, Oscar Pistorius was a Paralympian who unfortunately managed to shoot his girlfriend 4 or 5 times and kill her, thinking it was an intruder in his house, was his claim. But he was found guilty, not too surprisingly to a large extent. Yeah, he did seem truly remorseful and upset of what he had done. But they found him guilty, so... And they did not do any form of diminished responsibility or any kind of that stuff, so he spent a number of years in prison. But Oscar Pistorius' story was that he and his girlfriend, well, he hadn't really slept, and he had woken, you know, and his girlfriend had woken up and asked, you know, can you not sleep? And he was like, no. And he got up to move the fans that he had turned on because it was obviously hot or something, right? And he heard what sounded like the window going in the bathroom. So he got his gun and went to the room. The door was shut. Could still hear sounds the other side, so shot 4 or 5 times. It was only afterwards he realised his girlfriend was no longer in the room. Now, if through a closed door it's quiet enough for you to hear a window, normally, unless you heard breaking glass, normally it would have been quiet enough for you to hear someone getting out of bed right next to you. Because Oscar Pistorius has, I think, prosthetic lower both legs. So he was walking around on his little stumps, bless him, which is not comfortable, let's really be honest. So, you know, concentration's not entirely there. But, you know, in his own words, he walked around the bed to move the fans. Well, if that's the case, she was inches away from you, because if you've walked around the bed, it implies you've walked round more to her side. You normally would notice in doing that if the person who was on the bed with you had moved, right? But most of us, on hearing a sound, would look at the other and go, did you hear that? Even if all you do is really mouth it or whisper, you'd normally go, did you hear that? Am I losing my marbles? Am I not awake yet? Right, kind of thing, right? So you'd normally have noticed that the person you thought was in the room wasn't there. To go towards the bathroom, he must have walked then past her side of the bed, by the sounds of it. You really would have thought he would have noticed she was not in the room, which I assume is why they found him guilty, right? Because, you know, I mean, you know, I'm sure, I think there are courtroom stuff on YouTube you can find, a bit like the O.J. Simpson thing, you know. You can find all the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp stuff. I think there's plenty on there if you look for it. And, you know, he did seem genuinely upset that, you know, he'd managed to kill her. But he still managed to kill her. You know, did you do it? Well, kind of, yeah. You've openly admitted that you were the one firing the shots into the room, and it was only when you realised you couldn't see her and that you broke down the door with a cricket bat because it was locked, that you discovered it was your girlfriend. Well, the first thing that came to my mind is most couples that I know, now obviously this is not, you know, most of the time this is not the first kind of thing that most people talk about, but it's not uncommon, especially in the middle of the night, that couples, especially knowing that both of them are awake, would even shut the door, let alone lock it. I mean, if you're trying to keep quiet, you'd probably push the door to, but you wouldn't necessarily close it because that would make too much noise. You'd push it shut, sort of, so it's kind of touching but not closed, if you know what I mean. You wouldn't lock it. And that sounds more like someone who was trying to get away from somebody, not going for a crap. So, I don't know. Yeah. That was a strange one. But, you know, like a lot of things, there are sometimes you sit there going, I get it, but I kind of don't, you know. P. Diddy seems to... I mean, I seem to recall that he used to lock his bedroom door when they went to bed. You live alone in an apartment, why are you locking the door? I lock the doors to, like, the outside, but I wouldn't lock a bedroom door. I don't even have a lock on my bedroom door. Why would I have a lock on my bedroom door? It's my fucking house. Why do you feel the need to lock the door every night? Horseshit. We get plenty. When I lived in London, my house got burgled. Not long after I moved in here, old Biddy, who lives over there, in the big house, she got burgled overnight. She got burgled over there, you know, about a year after I moved in. They went in, found a handbag, took the keys to a car, nicked the car. Didn't seem to take anything else from what I got told, but then maybe I just didn't get told, you know, because it isn't really any of my business. But yeah, well, they did, but then she was upstairs and didn't interrupt them, is probably more accurate, because she's a tiny, tiny lady. She's 5 foot, if that, and I've got a boob that probably weighs that much. So she is a tiny lady. And she is 90-something. She's hardly going to do much about it. I mean, she's a sprightly 90. She's not the Zimmer frame and... It does, but one of the other things I will say to you is there was something in the paper a few years ago. Guy not far from here, again, so making local news. He'd been sitting in his sitting room when someone decided they wanted to come in and nick shit. And when he whacked them, inadvertently deceased them, you know, I don't know what he hit them with, but he obviously hit them good, you know. So let's say, he smacked them with a frying pan. Well, he was an elderly gentleman. He was 80-something. So part of you says, it's not like he's 30 and bench presses Ford Focuses for a living, right? This is an old dude who probably, much like my dad, spent a lot of time watching TV. He's kind of probably a bit frail, but he got him good. The police had to arrest him because, of course, the man had died. Even though the man had broken in... I know, I did karate, I know how to. But it was... One of those things was that this poor man who had defended his house got arrested, then had to go to trial for murder, and when the funeral of said deceased robber came up, the family complained no, you don't have to do it hard. You just have to catch it, especially if you've got a bit of a knuckle in the process. But one of the things, the poor man had to move because the family held him responsible for the death of their father, son, brother, whatever, right? And because of that, he ended up moving. But at the funeral, it is proper bullshit. It is disgusting behaviour. But what I thought was so sad was that he had to leave his home of many, 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 many years because they wouldn't stop. Yeah. And it was horrific. So I'm just seeing how far I need to go down here. Yep, that's that far. he had to move. But for the funeral, they wanted to drive by this dude's house. Well, I'm pretty sure the dude was not overly, content in his soul for having killed someone, even unintentionally. I'm pretty sure that, while we all agree FAFO is a very good... Oh, well. But... you get the same for people who have managed to kill people in a car accident. In that it may not have been their fault in the car accident, but they have survivor's guilt, right? They can have survivor's guilt, and if they're, so if little Johnny ran, age 4, ran out from behind a van, and it was a 40-mile-an-hour road, and you whacked him one, and he is now no more. People live with that. A friend of my dad's, his wife was driving down the road my dad lived in. I don't think I need this one, actually. Yeah. No, I don't. Was driving down my dad's road. Not having been to see my dad, but was driving down our road. Kid on a bike, cycling down the pavement, hopped out between two cars straight underneath the car, and died. She had to live with that for years. Years of it. Because the guilt of having killed a child haunted her. Well, we can understand why. But it didn't stop the fact that she'd killed a child. It wasn't her fault. She, kind of crunch is the first thing she knew about it. But well, it's one of the things that, much as I'm kind of anti-gun in a lot of ways, I'm not in another. If you break in my house, you've broken the law. You have surely waived your rights to legal protection. If I wish to use a large skillet on your noggin, because that's all I've got to hand, that's how it's going to be. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's the... But I know that 2 wrongs don't make a right. We're all adults. We all know that that's not true. But if in the act of doing something criminal, you injure yourself on something of mine. So let's say, I know I've got a pile of wooden boards with rusty nails and shit in the garden. If you leap over my fence trying to come and burgle me, stand on it, get an infection in your foot, lose a leg, you can't come and sue me for losing your leg when you were breaking into my house in the first place, right? Because surely the fact that you were not supposed to be there, you had no permission to be here, we'd never met until this day, it's, how do you get to sue me for that, right? And it's times like that I do believe that you guys have a better rule than we do, in that you break into my house, you meet your consequences, whatever they may be, and if I choose to be armed, well, yeah, I like that. I find it weird that I have myself Well, not intentionally anyway. You can still kill one or two quite easily with it. Well, yeah. It disturbs me that as a lawbreaker, you are protected by law. So, for example, in the UK, we are not permitted or you don't, yeah, or you choose to stay, yeah. One thing it does bug me in the UK. So, as I say, I do know that other places are different. Well, in the UK, you're not allowed to put barbed wire up along your fence. That's more likely. But we're not allowed to electrify barbed wire. We're not allowed to do any of this kind of crap to the perimeter of our house. Well, why not? If you're not doing something wrong, you'll never find out if it is. Simple as. I do find it weird that we do not allow people to protect their houses. I find that an odd decision. Yeah, I know he is, isn't he? We all know you're a big fat baby. You'd probably run away and hide should actual burglars come, Rory. Mind you, I thought that about Charlie, bless his little furry face. Charlie was the softest, nicest dog you ever met. He loved people. He thought every human on this planet was put here to be his friend. He knew he couldn't think badly of anyone if he tried. But the day Trev came out the spare room, and I knew it was Trev, Charlie was ready to kill him because he didn't realise it was Trev. He was absolutely ready to defend us. And it was quite amusing because, you know, Charlie as a whole was not a brave dog. Well, he was, as long as there was plenty of distance. So, one of the funniest things, Charlie would have been about 4 months old, and he was like a little ball of fluff. He was a bit bigger than that, but comparatively a little ball of fluff, right? And I'm walking him along the road, and in the distance there's this quite large dog. From my point of view, I knew it was a large dog. Clearly he did not. He obviously saw little Dookie in the distance. Says Charlie. And it's like, what are you growling at? Cool. As all good dogs would. But yeah, Charlie was walking along going, growl, growl, I'm big and gruff. Growl, 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 growl. No, but they know who looks after them. They know that they are one of their own, you know. And Charlie had seen this dog and he was growly, growly, growly. And it's got a bit closer and he was growly, growly, growl, growly, growl, 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 growl. And then we got basically within talking distance, and I go, evening, and dog Santa went, evening, and my dog's going, growl, growl. And then the dog kind of looked at him and he went, I'm just going to stand behind you now. I'm going to shut up. And it's like, well, be surprised. I was reading something on one of the social media sites the other day about a woman who was dog sitting for a friend or something. It wasn't her dog. She didn't really like dogs, but she'd agreed to do it for the friend for a reason or whatever. And someone came through the back door and she found out exactly why dogs are great. And there is probably a bit of both. I'd probably say a bit of both. But like they say, this woman was saying on social media about how she hadn't been a dog person. She'd never been a dog person until someone came to the door and put their foot in the door to stop her closing it. That little ball of fluff she'd written off as a waste of lump of space and, you know, medical expenses and all the rest of it, turned into, you know, evil Beelzebub dog and wanted to, you know, separate various parts of this person. And she was like, I love that dog. And it was, there's a line, and I can't remember what it is or exactly, but I believe, now don't quote me on this, I believe the scenario is that there's a guy who's been very anti-gay guy all of his life, and a gay guy does something to save him, and it's kind of along the lines of, well, you know, one person at, you know, as long as I don't have to go through the world one at a time to prove we're all right. And it is, you know, some dogs do have that, in that many people go, oh no, couldn't have a dog, oh no, can't have dogs and their babies, oh no, can't possibly have dogs and children, oh no, don't you worry about it. No, not at all. And to be honest, should something happen, should my dog have done something, I will want to know what you did to my dog to trigger it, because I know my dog. I don't know you well enough. So what did you do to my dog to trigger my dog? Because my dog's stupid, you know. Yeah, it's, as you say, you know, I remember being in London and this guy who used to walk Rossies, and I saw him one day and I crossed the road. And I kind of went up to one of them, booped it on the nose, and went, hello, you're ever so cute. And this poor bloke nearly melted. He nearly shit himself. Because people did not cross the road to see him. He honestly thought there was probably something wrong with me. In the sense of, he thought I was going to do something to him and his dogs. This was a big guy. This was a big man. And it was like, no, I came to see your doggies. Sat on the floor, big pile of hugs, you know, hug all the doggies, you know. And he's like, aren't you scared? And I went, no. Why would I be scared? They're all happy to see me, look. And it's kind of like, no, I can see your dogs are happy. I can see your dogs are content. If as I'd crossed over, they'd look a bit alert, I would have given you more space. But as I got closer, they were almost going, bounce, bounce, wants to say hello. So I said hello. I'm sorry, but, you know, no, I'm not scared of them. Why should I be? And he's kind of like, but everyone's scared of them. And I went, well, then the stupid are missing out on big doggy snuggles. Yeah. It's... Just look on his face when I booped one on the nose. Well, most dogs are adorable. I have a thing for big, fluffy dogs. Especially when they get the zoomies. I love big dogs. I remember when the first time I met a St. Bernard, fuck me, I didn't realise how much they drooled. And she went, oh, you know, I'm not sure you really want to. And I went, well, why not? And she went, well, they drool. Yeah, okay. I'll get wet then, won't I? And yeah, he did. Quite a lot, to be honest. It was almost like, you know, if you thought about it too long, you'd retch kind of level of drool. It was pretty excessive. I'm not going to disagree with her. But I got to say hello to him and he was gorgeous. Personally, when I die, heaven is going to be full of Newfoundlands. Okay? And all my old dogs, obviously. Because I love all my old dogs. And I do love dogs. But I will move to the area of heaven full of Newfoundlands. That is my view. Or anything kind of that ilk. There's a couple of there are a couple of other ones, but I've never actually met one in real life. But there's some that I look at and go, I need one of those. I mean, if I could, I'd have 6 in the house now, right, of newfies. There's a bear dog thing. I think it's a Chinese variety of dog that's about the size of a Shetland pony. I'd have a handful of them without batting an eye. I haven't really got the garden for it, but I'd love some. You know, who needs a couch when you've got a pile of dog? You know, it's just sit on the floor and envelop yourself in dog. You know, it's... I probably have to because, well, the couch wouldn't take more than one. I've never forgotten time with my dad. We went down to Tar Steps, which is quite famous in the UK, and it was somewhere we often went when we were in the area. And Dad and I were sitting in the car talking about the evening, planning to, going to go back to where we were staying because we'd moved away after all. Good for you. You go do that. But yeah, it was really nice to... We watched this pair of newfies getting into the back of this Mercedes that was there, and damn thing sunk to the bottom of its suspension. You know, it was kind of groaning at the seams, and you're kind of going, that's heavy. And it was the first time I ever saw newfies in person, and I was like, I need them. You know, it was one of those kind of, I need those. Where do we get those? I need those. More of those. So yeah, I would give a body part for a pile of newfies. I really would. I do like me newfies. Never actually owned one, but I want one or 12. Kind of like sheepdogs, old English sheepdogs, colloquially known by my good self as spuffies. There's a good reason for that, just go with it. So I do have a habit of, a bit like if I see rabbits, I do have a habit of yelling, bunny! Well, I have a habit of yelling spuffy when I see old English sheepdogs. And when Trev's dad died... Good! When Trev's dad died, the neighbour, kind of 2 doors down, had an old English, and she used to look after... I think it was its mother as well occasionally, so you'd see the two of them, and I met them a few times and said hello, and dropped around one day to ask, I'm sorry, but I really felt I ought to ask, can I say hello to your dogs, because I keep seeing them and I've got a bit of a thing. And she was really nice, and she didn't think I was completely insane, which was quite nice, because someone not quite as bad as the bloke who did think I was slightly insane. I used to take Trev's dad's dog for a walk. It was my regular Tuesday thing, was go over to see Trev, we'd have a bit of pizza, and I'd walk the dog. And the dog was the most antisocial fucking thing in the history of the world. I ended up looking after her for a while. She ended up living with me for a bit. Okay. But Lucy and I used to go for walks round where her dad's house was. And for the most part, we would walk for a while wherever she went. So she would go for walks. She would take me for the walk. I would totally let her dictate which directions we went. And we went all manner of places I didn't even know were around there. And some of it was very beautiful. There was a little wood. Didn't know they had a wood. The wood was really nice. Not so much fun when there was no moon whatsoever, because I can't see in the dark. But generally, it was really good. And but what would happen is we get halfway round, or we'd get to a point and I go, right, I think we need to go back now. And most of the time, she would not lead me back. I had to work out how to get back. So quite often, we kind of went back the way we'd come. Depending on where we'd got to. If I recognised it and I knew a better way, we'd go back the better way. But if I wasn't really sure where we were, we'd go back the way we came. One day, she was kind of leading me back, and it was kind of like, okay, new bit for me, but okay, I can deal with that. and I noticed some bloke had left his lights on. So I went over, knocked on the door. Hello, friendly neighbourhood nutter. You've left your lights on. That's suspiciously easy Mickey gets me. But yeah, hello, friendly neighbourhood nutter. You've left your lights on. And he went, oh my God, thank you. I've only just bought this car. I didn't know, I went, well, it's an old car. It doesn't automatically switch its lights off. You have to remember to do that on yourself. Darling, it's got no electric anythings. Everything is you power. And he went, yeah, I'm not used to it yet. But, he thought, he must have, the look on his face was, who are you? But he probably tells stories of the day the mad lady came and told him he'd left his lights on. To be honest, it wasn't even that great a car. I don't even think it was. I'm trying to remember what it was. It's a little red something. Must have been a polo. Everyone likes polos, so must have been a polo. So, choppity chop. You can tell how much thinner these bobbins are when they're pushed together by the fact that all of these fit in one bag. When like this, so they all fit in the one bag. Whereas all the other bobbins I've got don't. You need at least 2 bags. I do like these bobbins. I really, really do. Let's get you out the way. Now obviously to an extent I could have continued, but because I want to have the sewing of the strips to practice the sewing of the strips, we are doing the chop because, well, this is the required thing for you to have things to practice sewing. You need multiple of them, and it's better than trying to make a long strip of lace and then try and chop it into chunks, because then it will come unravelled. So this is the better way of doing it. And because we're not overly troubled by the state of play of the bottom, we can make a load of knots and then trim them. Chop to chop, chop to chop, chop to chop. Right. Over there. Then we dig out the box of pins and play pulley pulley. And then we get to marvel at what is our strip. And I do know that lots of lace makers will be going, hey, you don't need to keep that many pins in. Paranoia. It doesn't do it any harm, and it helps worries of things pulling things out of shape. So I don't care if I don't need that many. I like it. Just means a lot more work when it comes to the end of pulling them out. Alright. We can laugh at how many mistakes I've made, because there's bound to be a bunch. I do know there's at least one. It's quite near the top. And yes, I am slightly conscious that watching me yank pins is hardly a spectator sport. But it's part of the process. So that's the way it is. In there. suppose you're gonna. I didn't think you would. That was a mishope. You ready? Right, let's have a look. Have that, put that over there. So, this is a quarter strip. And you can't see it probably too well, so let me get app up so I can put, because I still can't control the camera. Hang on, let me do the whole zoom edge. Right, let's go. I need to go. Well, let's start at the top end. Hang on. So, one rose ground. See, this is what I mean by doing a spot. I think while that works, if you consider its friends, right? So you consider its friends that it will be joining next to, right? If I move this up a little bit, so you can see a bit more of this one. We could replace the medium ones with something smaller. But I think from a distance, that looks a bit more like a mistake. No, it's just the, it's right, I wondered if there was a mistake. It's not, it's just the knots. So, I don't hate it. I just think that from a slight distance, it will look more like a mistake. These three show up quite well. And this is the same size as this, I think. No, this is slightly smaller than one of these. So that can work because you can see it, but it's small, but it's still airy. Kind of like that. This is the same size as that. So the 3 square one, I like that, and I like its big brother. But you certainly wouldn't use both of those, all three, and you know, any of those three as your pairs. This was the first one that I felt was a fudge. If you recall, the edging for this was that basically I thought I'd got it wrong, because this was inside the pins and I made this second little layer. Now I absolutely like this. I like this a lot. Muchas like yes, right? Then we went to the one that didn't make any sense, so I did this. Now, I actually quite like this. I like how this has turned out. And it was really easy. We like easy. This was also easy, although I was swearing as I worked out the edging, because I was convinced that it didn't work out, and I'm pretty sure I felt like I fudged a corner, but looking at it, it looks great. Can't argue with that. So these two are definitely high up on the list, even though that was not originally a contender. So, to be argued, basically any of those, bar the first one, which I think just looks too much like, I mean, I'm obviously looking at what you can see in like a 2-inch square. That looks like a mistake on my 2-inch square. I can see these patterns. Maybe not as clearly as you would as I can sitting here in real life, because well, it is a 2-inch like square on my screen. The Eye of Sauron. I don't hate it, but I kind of don't love it either. I think if you were making a bookmark, this would be a nice kind of thing to do in the peak at the top and the peak at the bottom. I think that could be quite nice. My little archway one that is... I'm going to do this because it's easier. This little archway one, I really like it. But on here at this size, on my little 2-inch square, this looks more like a mistake. In person, it looks a lot better. For you would have it this way round, so that it opens downwards. And it gives you almost like the pointy fingernail look. You have the pointy bit and then like the white French bit of the thing, and then some kind of frondy bits. So I now need to, but this is quarter of a strip. So something went a bit fruity here. Not quite sure what went wrong fruity there. And back here somewhere there is a loop. Maybe on the other side, because of course one of these has a loop on it and I don't see it now. Hang on. Because I saw that it got caught. There it is. There's a bit of a loop here. But other than that, compared to half a square, there are so many less mistakes on that, which is kind of weird. There's a bit of a fudge there as well. But I'm not happy with it. Really, distinctly not. As expected, most of the contestants are valid contestants. Why they made it on the strip in the first place. I don't hate any of them. Whereas some of these, I won't say I hate them, but they're definitely not winners, you know? Whereas if any of those won, I think, to be honest, I am really caught by this one. It's quite noticeable. That's the word. But it's not wrong noticeable. It's pleasurably noticeable. Yeah, I kind of like that. I am drawn to that. So, potentially at this time, first, second, thirds between these two. I wouldn't want the big ones to be this. I don't think. Although they don't look horrific. I'm not sure I want the big ones to be this. Now, cascade failure. My other strips. It says collecting them. So let's have a look. The other strips. So future contestants still to come. Still to come on. Who wins to be on Liz Curtin is a bigger version of the cathedral. Oh, you can't see that. It's a bigger version of the cathedral. A square within a square. The little ovals within a square. Rose ground within a square. So these are more contestants, I think, for the bigger thing. Although that's a big one. These are generally... These ones are... These three are the size of the medium one. So, hang on, let me get a bit more sorted. So, out of these three are this size. This one is slightly smaller. This one is an arch with a square around it, is the size of this. as is what effectively is that, but a bit smaller with a square around it, so that this wouldn't look quite so messy. This is the size of the big one. These are the size of the medium ones. So pretty much, future contestants for... This was an audition for a big spot. I don't think it wins a good... It's not hideous, I do like it, but I don't think it wins the condition for the big spot. On the second strip to go, we have an even bigger cathedral, which I'm pretty confident is not going. We have 2 more contestants for the medium spot, one of which has arseload of tallies, which, God help my soul if I really like it, because please no. Then there's this. Now this could be interesting, because I have a horrible feeling I will like this. But part of me also hopes that I do not. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't spot that. Okay, so with the Eye of Sauron, you notice that with the Eye of Sauron here, there is a rose ground top and bottom. Most of these have a rose, middle ones have a rose ground top and bottom, and yeah, could look a little odd. If I didn't, how would that work out? So that would go, say, that way. That would go to there. And there'd be 2 there. Hang on, so if that comes in, that would then have to go to there. That could work. That could work. Yeah, I foresee interesting problem, because I've noticed again, remember when we were doing the little zigzaggies that basically didn't add up? There's a couple of missing lines, but the missing lines kind of don't make sense. Let's see how that turns out. But I need to poke holes in these. Oh, excuse me, at some point. And I want to attach this to here. As so. Like this. So that we will be able to see if I can make this join even better. But that is 2/3 of my window. Not that you can see it like that. But if I, hang on, I need to press magic buttons again. Hang on. This is the width. So 2 more of these is the width of my window. So if I snug that under there like this, and this kind of, if I line this up in an all-knowing manner like this, the actual width of my window pane is this. So give you an idea of what I'm making. Yeah, there you go. Well, on that note, because we've come to a good point, there's a fuck up there somewhere. Don't know quite how I've done that one, but that one looks a bit odd. Yeah, there's a bit of shenanigans there somehow. But to be honest, that is pretty much blot free. There's a shenanigans there where something didn't happen at the join, and I think it's just a tension issue. Where's a pin? It's not like I don't have any pins about the place. Yeah, that one's just a tension issue. But here, there's only one cross, not two. So I obviously put my pin in and buggered off and got bored and forgot. But realistically, they are the only screaming mistakes of the whole thing. Now, normally, as you know, we look back every time we pull out pins and go, oh look, screwed up here, 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 here. And we list off quite a kind of shopping list of mistakes. But looking at this, I'm not going to say it's perfect, because it's definitely not. But, well, there's something a bit more funny there. But I think that's, well, I forgot to twist in that bit there. So, if I put that in there, and that there, I think they're the only two mistakes that I made. It's pretty damn good for me, considering that's over half a square. Because kind of half a square stops back here. So obviously you can't see, but it's like this much off the bottom. So, to be honest, I mean, to give you an idea, because it's not so clear, because obviously if I put it back on the screen with this, that's half a square. So this is a square and chunk. Because, well, there's almost a third again. So, yeah. So arguably that's nearly 3/4 of a square. Which makes sense if you consider that it was 3 squares across and 6 squares down. So, kind of should work out. But, yeah, I'm not displeased. I'm not displeased. Definitely liking this. Definitely liking this. As I say, I don't hate the rose grounds. I like the rose grounds. I just don't know if that's what I want in my curtain. Little square here that doesn't show up so much. Almost is nice because it doesn't show up so much. The Eye of Sauron, I don't hate it. I don't hate any of them. Which is bonus. We may have to put votes up for it, of course. Because Liz the indecisive and all that. And as I say, it's such a shame it's 6 strips wide. Now, the other thought was that the inner have snakes on the outside for the outside kind of, and the strips on the inside could be plainer. Therefore, you could get away with bigger motif things and kind of litter them about a bit. But you'd have to leave enough of a gap here to... So you'd have to be careful how you did it. But I do like this. Definitely drawn to that. But there we go. Time to take a photograph. It's funny, I ordered something from Amazon on Wednesday. No, Tuesday, because today's Wednesday. I ordered something from Amazon yesterday evening, before I started stream. And it went, yeah, you can't have it till Thursday. Well, they're only just shipping it now. So if you'd shipped it a day ago, like when I ordered it, it would have been here today. So you could have got it here earlier, but... yeah, let's try and do it a little bit more like that. Yeah, let's have a look at that. that could be worse photo. Here we go. So, as I said, I shall go off and kill things while the video uploads, and I shall see you tomorrow's Thursday, right? Tomorrow, although I'm not quite sure what we'll do tomorrow. Haven't decided yet. Haven't decided. We shall see, I think is the short answer. And to you, Mickey Catsme, thank you for coming. Thank you for chatting. It has always been a pleasure. Take care, everybody, and I shall see you tomorrow.